All right, welcome to this new podcast. We got a special episode today. We have a transatlantic podcast. That's not the first one, but it's the first time that I have one podcast with three lovely ladies in my company. So I'm really excited for this podcast. We've been talking about it for a while now. For those who are listening on audio, there's four of us on the podcast today. I'm gonna let my guests present themselves in a second here, but for a bit of a change, we're going to be talking about nutrition. We talk a lot about training and other topics, and nutrition is a topic that is very interesting, very complex, very important as well for both health and performance, but I don't touch on it a lot. So today we're going to have a lot to say about this. Ladies, we're going to start with you guys on the other side of the screen. I'll let you guys take a couple minutes each to present yourselves, and then we'll jump back on this side and we'll kick off the conversation. So welcome to the podcast to all three of you, and let's get it going. Lisa, if you want to start.
Sure. Thank you. It's so nice to be here today. I'm very grateful and happy to be with all of you and to see you in person, Sean. Well, sort of in person. My name is Lisa Sakos. I'm a holistic nutritionist and a natural nutrition coach, and one of the co-authors of the Natural Nutrition Coach program. And I've been practicing for about 25 years. I got into natural nutrition like you heard 2.5 decades ago, when I was really struggling with my energy levels, my digestion, my weight, and the programs I had been doing up until that point to get to the goal weight, even with all the exercise that I was doing, was just not working for me. So I dropped the scale, dropped the traditional philosophies, and turned to eating natural foods. And I lost 50 pounds in a year. Never felt better. Digestion was amazing, and just wanted to share my newfound knowledge with the world. So I went back to school to study holistic nutrition, and I've been teaching ever since. So I'm super excited to launch this new program, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here today.
It's good to have you guys on, and you on, Lisa. I'll be interested to ask you a few questions about your writing process. It's a topic that is interesting to me, and I'm not very well versed in that. So we're probably going to touch on some nutrition and that as well. Heather?
Well, hi, and thank you again, Sean, for having us on your podcast.
Of course.
I'm Heather Kramer. I guess I'm the OG of the group. I'm a holistic nutritionist as well as a natural nutrition coach, and co-author with Lisa and Lynne with the program. So I'm actually a personal trainer, a cancer exercise specialist as well. And the reason I got into nutrition and so interested in nutrition was I had cancer. I had breast cancer. I think 12 years ago now, I was diagnosed. And one of the things that, as I was going through my recovery, I realized if I didn't make some substantial changes, I could actually end up with cancer again. Recurrence is very common. So I, first of all, got into the fitness part, felt so much better. It was just amazing, and wanted to share that with other people that were going through the process. So I actually left my corporate job and studied to become a personal trainer and then a cancer exercise specialist. But then I felt there was something missing. There was a missing piece of the puzzle, and that was actually the nutrition portion. So I went back to school and studied to become a holistic nutritionist and started to have that in my practice. And then I realized, you know what? I think there's some opportunities for other fitness professionals to learn more about nutrition, especially natural nutrition. And then sort of that's where the course evolved. So, and here we are.
Well, thanks, Lisa and Heather. And now, honey, I'll turn to you. So for those listening, I have my beautiful wife on the podcast today.
It's first time in
ever on this one. I think
That's awesome.
I think it's the first time on the Upside Strength podcast. We've done a couple together on the Holistic Nutrition Hub podcast.
Yeah,
I believe, but
very long time ago, probably like 5 years ago, maybe even more at this point. So,
so let me give my intro of you.
You guys ready?
So Lynne is the person that you guys maybe hear about sometimes on the podcast or on my YouTube channel, but haven't seen much so far. But she's definitely a cornerstone of everything that I do. I couldn't do, and I say this, but I never say it to her. This is one of the things that So I'm taking that opportunity here on the podcast. Since it's recorded, it's going to go out to the world. So I've actually said it at least once for real. She's, a big part of everything that I've been able to accomplish so far. She's driven me a lot. You have driven me a lot in decisions that I've made, or, helped me make decisions that I wasn't ready to make myself. And so
I feel like you're proposing to me.
I'm a little bit, I'm probably the most nervous I've ever been on the podcast, because I'm, kind of declaring all of this to her for the first time, since I never do it to her. I just do it to my subscribers and the people of the podcast. So Lynne, my wife, honey, thank you for everything that you do, because I couldn't do what I do without you. And now I'll let you just say hi to the podcast folks.
Thanks. Now you got me all flustered. Like, I don't know what to say. Anyways, thanks for obviously having us on. It's like you guys all said, it's been a long time coming. I'm really excited to be on the podcast. I don't listen in much, so if he does say these things, it's unbeknownst to me. So thank you for your kind words. It's been a journey for sure. A little bit about me. I started out in the natural nutrition world actually because I got eczema randomly at around 23. I, didn't understand why all of a sudden I got eczema. I went to the traditional allopathic doctors. They told me it was just that way and I was just going to have to live with it. But at the time I was actually listening to people like Chris Kresser and Rob Wolf and following a lot of paleo stuff. And this was actually before Sean and I were even officially together, I would say. So I knew and was curious about what other things I could do in order to help mitigate this. And obviously it's a huge rabbit hole. I started going down it and have been going down it ever since. Once you kind of jump into this realm, you don't ever stop. But after a couple of years of kind of scouring the internet and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work, I too decided to go to school and make this a real thing for me. So I became a holistic nutritionist. And just like these other two lovely ladies, I've been teaching ever since. I've ran a meal prep business that was very successful back in Vancouver before we moved back to Switzerland. Just have been trying to continue sharing the knowledge that I think is integral to all of our health, whether you're an athlete, an individual, you have a family, it doesn't really matter. Nutrition can be at the base or might be at the base of what you consider to be true health and wellness, not necessarily at the base, but is one integral piece of it anyway. And so here we are. Now, Heather said she's the OG. She kind of wrangled us all together. And here we are today working together as colleagues to, share what we all think is important. After 45 years of combined experience, I think we have a lot to say. So here we are.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking as you guys were talking, probably one of the reasons I seldom talk about nutrition, it's because I know that Lynne kind of has this part covered, and so I don't spend too much time thinking about it. She definitely is the one who knows how to whip something up together when there's nothing left in the house, and makes a great meal out of nothing, or just knows how to shop. I don't know how to shop. I'm boring when I shop. I send her pictures of the stuff that I bought when I was traveling last weekend. And we had a good laugh about it because I'm very, can you describe my shopping?
Random canned goods. So like tuna, boxes of cherry tomatoes, always sun-dried tomatoes, capers. Like if he goes to the store, it's the most random stuff. And when you see a bowl of food that Sean puts together, it's the most bizarre food that you would ever see combined together. Definitely
king of leftovers.
Definitely. I'm not a leftover girl, but that's why I have him. I call him the garburator because it's helpful anyway. So
let's start with a topic that I think everybody hears about, but you guys can shed a lot of light on it and maybe go into more details. We talk about macronutrients. We talk about protein, carbs, and fats. One thing that we talk less about, but that is equally as important, is micronutrients. So I'll let you guys figure out who wants to go first. I'm not gonna be the arbiter of this. So however you guys want to play it, but let's get an overview of macros and micros and then dive into some of the important takeaways on this broad topic. Why is it important to consider both of those? Let's start with that question.
You want to take that one?
Sure, I'll start. Okay, well, we all know why the macros are important, obviously. Carbs, fats, proteins, they make us tick, they build our physical bodies, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes in order for those carbohydrates, fats, and proteins to be metabolized once you've ingested them, for them to be digested properly, for them to go where they need to go and do what they need to do efficiently. They need micronutrients. So these are the minerals, the vitamins predominantly. And I think like you said, Sean, we really underestimated their value. There's so much talk about determining the right macros and making sure you hit your protein targets every day and, keeping your fat to a minimum or a maximum, depending on the type of program you're following. But we don't often hear, I need to make sure that I'm getting 50 milligrams of vitamin B6 every day, or 400 or 500 milligrams of vitamin C in divided doses every day. We'll hear about certain ones like magnesium. We know that helps us sleep. We know that it is great for muscle recovery after exercise. It can help us relax, taking an Epsom salt bath, but we don't really, it's not a central focus in our everyday discussions or in the world anyways. It is for us though, because we really focus so much more so on the behind the scenes stuff with our clients. So we look for imbalances or where someone might need more of a certain micronutrient in order to reach a specific health goal. And then of course, a combination of different nutrients. Like if iron is deficient, and almost all of my female clients are deficient in iron, and almost all of them happen to be vegetarian, but most of them are deficient in iron. And it's not just, throwing iron into your body is not going to fix the problem. That's a micronutrient, but it's not going to fix the problem. And it never does. It might like elevate their iron levels temporarily, but if they stop taking that iron supplement, it eventually goes down again, because there is always a reason for that iron to be deficient. So let's dig deeper. What's behind the scenes? What is it? Is it copper, too much or too little copper? Is it another mineral imbalance? Is it the microbiome? Because if your microbiome isn't working well, or if there's an imbalance there, then it's really difficult to absorb iron. So we start by identifying the micronutrient that might be out of balance, and then we dig deeper to try and figure out why that's out of balance in the first place. So there is so much to be said about the micronutrients, and I think all of us as professionals need to start looking more in that direction.
Yeah, and I can add on to that as a personal trainer. We often talk about the energy systems and the Krebs cycle, for example, and how we produce our energy. Well, a lot of these actions in the body don't occur if you don't have the proper micronutrients. So, for example, in the oxidative cycle, you require B vitamins. So if you're deficient in B vitamins, and if you're deficient in one, typically you're deficient in most of them, you're not producing energy at an optimum level, right? Your body isn't metabolizing things, and all of the methylation in the systems in the body aren't optimized. So making sure that micronutrients are in sufficient quantity in your diet, if not adding in supplements. And I'll throw this out as well. One of the things we see quite often is our clients will go and they'll get blood work done, and they'll come back and they'll say, yeah, the vitamin, your B levels are fine. But everybody has different requirements, and it really depends on, not even life stage, lifestyle, that as well, but also their health at the time and so on. So their requirement for that particular micronutrient may be higher. For example, I went with 23andMe, and I get all kinds of information about the genes that I have. And one of the genes I have tells me that I don't metabolize my B12 very well. So I need extra B12. And B12 is so integral in so many of our energy systems. So, all of those things come into play. The more you understand about micronutrients and their importance in the body, especially, if you're a trainer and you want to optimize for your client, those things are very important.
So maybe what I'd like to dive into now, or I guess going a little bit deeper into those, we talked about iron, we talked about B vitamins. Can we get an overview of what all the very important micronutrients are that we need to kind of keep? If we had to pick 5, or if we had to pick 8, which ones do we pick to focus on? Because obviously, like you guys said, it's a very, and that's probably another reason why I don't talk about nutrition much, is I know how complex it actually gets, and how many differences you can have from one person to the next, even across time. I remember at some point Lynn was allergic to beef, so you did a blood test, and beef was the most reactive one at the very top of the list. You stopped eating for a couple of years. Next thing you know, 3 years later, you're eating carnivore for 3 months and you're thriving on it. So it's
I think that boiled down to more digestive issues, perhaps.
Exactly, but I mean,
body changes and
it changes so much in so short a time span, which again makes nutrition so much more complex to talk to on a global level, I guess, because you have to, like you guys said, you have to go down to the individual level if you want to do a good job of it. So if we had to pick 5 micronutrients,
I'm gonna
you go, baby, you go.
Okay. So first and foremost, something to say is that, you know, the micronutrients usually come from our macronutrients. So they're going to come from our fat sources, from our carbohydrates, from our protein. So, you know, if those sources of food are deficient in the micronutrients, you're going to potentially not be getting enough anyways. And so something that I realized lately is kind of going back to like MyFitnessPal and tracking my food and seeing if I'm getting enough even macronutrients. But they've started even tracking some of the potential micronutrients in those foods, and I'm always way below what the daily required amounts are. So it's, if you're not conscientiously picking foods that are high in micronutrients as well as healthy macronutrients, there's a good chance that you could be deficient, you know, definitely with the way that things are growing. So that was one point I just wanted to say. And it's important to say that it's probably not down to like the 5 most important ones, because they all work synergistically.
They all work together.
They all work together, or are often coupled with something else in order to work well in the body. They can't function really alone with you know, like if you, like Lisa said, if you take a bunch of iron, it may not be that you're deficient in iron, you take iron, your iron is going to go up. Are you getting all the other cofactors that go along with it that are going to make it absorbable within the body or usable?
And the phytonutrients.
And then there's the phytonutrients.
What's a phytonutrient?
Absolutely.
It's the chemicals that are found in plants that are like beta carotene. Am I right? Beta carotene.
Yeah, lycopene. Yeah,
lycopene, like all those.
Yeah, all kinds of. Yeah.
They're the things that are in plants that help with not oxidization. Well, yes, they're antioxidants.
A lot of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, anti-tumorigenic. I can't say the word. It helps against preventing tumor, helps prevent tumors.
Okay. So you can't pick 5
because they all work synergistically.
Because they all work together. So so where do you start? What do you look at? How do you know if you're deficient in any given micronutrient? Symptoms. Okay.
Symptoms. Symptoms.
Okay. Is there any like big? Okay. So what are the 5 most common symptoms of general deficiencies that we might see in someone? Because maybe some people tuning in can, you know, relate to that and figure out, oh, I'm experiencing this, so maybe that's something that I need to.
Low energy.
Okay.
Fatigue, absolutely, that's a huge one. Yeah.
Huge.
Okay, fatigue. What else?
Problems with sleep would be another one. Anxiety and depression. Can you guys think of some other ones? Those are
weak
the top
immunity.
ones.
Weak
immunity.
And skin
problems. Yeah,
skin problems.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so visually and just not feeling like you're thriving.
Yeah, I guess the low energy, the skin problems, those are all things that should be able to be noticed, right? If somebody feels like they never have enough energy, and when you talked about the impact on sleep, I'd like to, you know, sidestep for a second, because you guys use this 4-pillar approach to health in your program and in everything that you do. One of them is sleep, if I'm not mistaken. Let's talk about sleep for a few minutes, because as you said, some deficiencies might show up as bad sleep, but we also know that, at least for me, from my perspective, at this current point in time, sleep has to be one of the most accessible things that we can impact and change positively, and one of the biggest drivers of health or disease, depending on how you treat it in today's world, especially. So let's talk about sleep for a minute. We'll come back to micronutrients afterwards. Why is sleep so important for our health?
It's when your body actually does its housekeeping. So it's it's called autophagy, and it's literally your body's cleaning out all the detritus, I guess, cellular metabolism, and helping to.
Is autophagy when the body gets rid of its own cells, right? Is that the process?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, as we're, our regular metabolisms, all the different processes that are going on in the body, there's waste products made from that, right? So during sleep, your body's flushing that out. It also, in a lot of our research that we've been doing on the lymphatic system, which is where a lot of this flushes out through, in our brain, we have a system called the glymphatic system. And at nighttime, that's when all of this, because our brain uses so much of our energy, right? And it's also creating a lot of waste materials. So at nighttime, when we sleep, that's when a lot of that is flushed out. So if we're not getting sleep, it doesn't get flushed out. And that's when people start, like, they're not thinking clearly, that, they just feel like, a lot of times they say, I feel like I'm in a fog. Right. So those are some of the things that you might notice. So it's really, sleep is very important for just body maintenance. Right. Do you have some things you want to add to that, Lisa?
Well, yeah. And I think the question is, how do we get to sleep and how do we stay asleep?
Exactly.
That's the
factor
question. Thanks for asking it.
I mean, sleep is elusive for so many, including myself. I've struggled with sleep my entire life, and I don't think I realized it until my daughter was born. And when she was born, I'm sure she has a melatonin deficiency because she has all the signs, like even as a baby. I was writing a book when she was born, and people say sleep like a baby. Not my baby. Like she would sleep at night for like an hour at a time, and then she was up an hour at a time. That's normal for babies, but that went on until she was about 6. And then during the day too, she'd have like little micro naps. And to this day, she's a really troubled sleeper. And so am I. And it just brought me back to my own childhood, remembering my parents and how frustrated they were. So, I mean, there are some natural sleep patterns. Before electricity, like there's a theory that we used to have 2 sleeps. That early humans had 2 periods of sleep. We would sleep from, say, like when the sun went down, because that's when melatonin is produced. So we'd sleep when the sun went down, and we'd wake up around 3 in the morning for an hour or so, and then go back to sleep from 4 or 5 until whenever we woke up, whenever the sun would rise. But we evolved out of that. But there are some theorists now who are saying that maybe we should go back to that, because like some people have so much struggle sleeping. I do not recommend that because I think that's more problematic, especially based on what Heather said, and with our lifestyles, it's just not possible. So why do we not sleep? Anxiety. Our thoughts are racing. We're not breathing properly. We're just taking too much to bed with us. We're working late. We have blue screens, the blue light from our cell phones, from our televisions, from our computers, especially since COVID. So many people are still working from home, and they have to live their lives in addition to their work. So they cut their work day short, and then they log in again at night to finish their work. So they're working late. Their mind doesn't have a chance to calm and get into the place where we can sleep. And so we're neglecting our sleep hygiene, right? So darken it, like make sure your room is pitch black, no noise, deep breathing, like all those things. But aside from all of that, because we've learned that, what nutritionally is keeping us from having a restful sleep?
Absolutely.
Is it that our brain chemistry is not in the right place? Like maybe we're not making enough melatonin. Why not? Well, something that maybe a lot of people don't know is that magnesium makes melatonin. And if we're low in magnesium, which is one of the top deficiencies, if we're low in magnesium, we can't make enough melatonin, which means that we're going to have trouble sleeping.
Yeah,
so
I definitely. I've definitely, sorry to cut you off. I've definitely felt the difference whenever I take magnesium before bed. I have the most restful sleep that, I mean, ever. That's something that comes up often.
Yeah.
And when I do take, I don't take it all the time. I'm not very diligent about this side of things, but when I do take magnesium, I feel the difference in my sleep, and it's significant. Let's put it that way.
Well, and for clients, if you have clients that have cramps and so on, that's often a sign of magnesium deficiency.
Well, it's
The-
what,
the trick is to
95%.
take-
95% of us are deficient in magnesium, and it's in
Absolutely.
300, at least 350 enzymatic functions within the body. So
Oh, absolutely. It's so important. The thing is that there's a number of different types of magnesium. So you want to make sure you take the right form at night. So the magnesium bisglycinate, I can never say that correctly. Bisglycinate is the form that you want to take, because that actually helps to relax and calm you, which is what you want to do. Right. So there's other forms that you would take to help with bowel movement. So that's probably not something that you would want to take at
Right
nighttime
before
before you
Good times. Good times.
So in other words, all forms of
Go ahead,
magnesium will help you relax and go to sleep, but you also don't want to wake up to have diarrhea in the middle of the night.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to have that knowledge on nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that came up that you mentioned just before, Lisa, is, you know, working late at night. That's something that impacts me quite negatively. I cannot work late, or if I do, I really need something to cut my day to go then to sleep, because if I stay in my work mode in my head, I will be up for at least 2 hours just thinking about what I should do, you know, the next day. So you guys touched briefly on sleep hygiene. Han, do you want to go a little bit deeper on what can we do to make our sleep the best sleep possible? You know, we talked a little bit about supplementation, but what are the simple steps that we can all take today, tonight, to make sure that we all get a good restful night of sleep? What would you say?
I would say putting the screen away at least, you know, 2 hours before bed. And that's going to be really hard for some people. And they're going to be like, oh, well, I go to bed. There's no way I can put my phone away 2 hours before. But in order for the hormones to really kick in when they're supposed to kick in, especially with these early nights where the sun is going down a lot earlier, you know, we tend to try and put our phones away, you know, at 8 p.m. when we put our son to bed. And then we either, you know, we do sometimes keep the lights on in the room, or we'll actually light candles, which is a red light and not a blue light. So
talk about this for a second. The blue light, from what I understand, the blue light is the spectrum that you'll predominantly see at sunrise.
at sunrise.
And so when you're looking at a bright blue screen, or a bright screen that primarily emits blue light, which all of our screens do, at night, it's kind of signals to your brain that it's time to wake up. And so is that correct?
Correct, exactly. And then all these other things. So if you think about back to, you know, the Neanderthal times, or when fire was used in the evening, you know, the sun would go down, which is a signal that it's getting dark, it's time to get, you know, in a rest mode. But then we would use fire, you know, like people would sit around a fire, and that would be our light source at night. Whereas now we have all the lights in our room, and I don't know if you're conscientious about electricity or not. Maybe you don't turn any lights off. Sean, I can tell where Sean's been in the house because he leaves a trail of lights on. All of it just ding, 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 all throughout the house, and it drives me crazy. Anyways, putting your phone away, I think, and not having a TV in your room, like I think that's really detrimental to our health. And I think it's a hard thing for people to kind of get out of the habit, because you want to be on your phone, you want to be watching something to de-stress. Let's say I'm going to watch TV to de-stress, but in fact, we're actually just causing more stress on the body. And stress doesn't just mean exercise. It doesn't just mean feeling anxious. There's all these other things that can be stressful on the body. And this is one of them. Making sure that your room is comfortable. You know, do you have a little oasis for you to go and do something for yourself in? So, you know, our room is full of plants. It's, you know, zen.
Thanks to her, not to me.
It's zen. You know, it's really a place where you can go and be comfortable and feel like you are, cozy. Keeping the door open or window open, just a crack, like having the temperature
helps.
the right amount in the room. Being too hot is actually not great for us. So having just a little crack or keeping the heat down in your room can help you fall asleep as well. And I mean, you know, nutrition plays a huge role. We can talk about it for hours, but I would say those are like the 3 things that we follow pretty regularly. Unless one of us is working late, and we always feel it. For example, I stayed up late on a call yesterday and work kind of took me into dinner time, and I had a horrible sleep. It was awful. I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning, just lying there doing nothing. And I feel it today. So
Yeah.
sleep's crucial.
Yeah, to bring it back
Absolutely.
to the link between sleep and digestion, one thing that I thought of just before when you guys were talking about, when Lisa, you were talking about, you know, having your child and how this went. It was the same with us. Avery didn't sleep for the first year and a half, 2 years of his life.
Oh yeah.
Didn't sleep through the night, and what it was crazy how evident this was. Lynn got this, I don't know if it was this one where the beef came up, but she did a food allergy test, food sensitivity and allergy test. And the next day she cut out, she was still breastfeeding at the time. She cut out the things that were top of the list. And the following night is the first night in his life that Avery slept through the night without
Wow.
waking up. And
Wow.
so if we consider the fact that whatever, you know, you were eating and passing through your breast milk to Avery, that was then, you know, if you were sensitive to it, potentially he was as well, or the fact that you were made it so that when you pass that down, it had a negative impact on him. And he always had, you know, an upset stomach. That was always something that
Well, let's go even deeper.
Yeah.
He didn't sleep well, if at all. He was always up. He had upset stomach. He had eczema.
Mhm.
So, you know, one thing a lot of people don't realize is that the microbiome and the health of the digestive system is passed on to the infant. So I was
Mhm.
probably already compromised at that time. I already had, you know, signs of dysbiosis maybe, or leaky gut, and that's why I had these food sensitivities. But anything that I was sensitive to, he is actually allergic to, which we found out when he was about 15 months old. So even after we found out that he's even more allergic to these things. And so by cutting out the foods that I was sensitive to, the proteins were no longer going through my breast milk and going to him, which then allowed him to sleep and me to sleep. And I'm still paying for the consequences of that lack of sleep now. So, you know, autoimmune issues and energy and fatigue issues and all of those things, it's all this downstream effect of, you know, lack of sleep, poor nutrition because I wasn't absorbing it, and all of these things are all interconnected. And it is, you know, it's very complex, but it all makes sense when you understand what the pathways are. So yeah, absolutely, you know, sleep and nutrition played a huge part in our son's life, my life, and that just, you know, furthered our knowledge in this area too, and made it, you know, made me more curious, I guess.
I want to talk about digestion, but Lisa, Heather, did you want to add anything on sleep while we were on that big topic?
Just quickly, I would say get into a routine, because our bodies
Yeah,
thrive on
that's true.
routine and
Fair.
our circadian rhythm. So just, you know, having that routine night after night kind of trains your body up. Now it's sleep time. Maybe take a little bath, relax, Epsom salts, magnesium in it, your body absorbs, can help you relax as well. So those are like some quick tips.
Yeah, you talked
Having the
about
routine.
you talked about the bath. I really liked having a hot shower before bed. And some person asked me recently, said, "Oh, isn't that the wrong way around? Because you want your body to cool down before bed, or cool down as you go to bed, because that's another signal that it's time to go to sleep." But that's actually what the hot shower does. You get into the hot shower, and then as your body cools down from the hot shower, that is one of the signals to your brain, I guess, that it is time to go to sleep. And I find that very helpful, and you know, just calming down after a long day, and just feeling really good when I go to sleep. So that was a good point, Heather. Thanks for bringing it up. We talked briefly about digestion and its importance, and how it can wreak havoc on your sleep if you don't digest things properly, whether it's during the day or at night. That's probably something that we can all, you know, think about, and how can we make sure that we have, you know, a healthy digestive system, or that we digest things as best as possible. Because I guess you could take in all the right foods, right? All the right macros, all the right micros. If you don't absorb them properly because you have an issue on the digestive end, that it's to no avail. So where do we start thinking about digestive health, and then how can we impact that positively?
I'm pointing here because it all starts here in our mouth. The best thing
Chewing?
you can do for digestion is to chew properly.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't do. I don't know.
So
I don't know
one
what
of the
that
things
is.
one of the things I actually tell my clients is every time you take a bite, make sure you have at least 20 chews.
Why is it
And-
important, Heather? Why should we chew, and why should I chew? That's a very selfish question for me because I don't.
You
Well,
already know why you should
I
chew.
know, but I don't listen to you, so I need somebody else to tell me. Heather, can you tell me why I should chew, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, we say it starts here for two reasons. One is that we have our digestive enzymes in our saliva, which actually start to break down some of the macronutrients, carbohydrates specifically. But it also takes a lot of the pressure off of our digestive system because when we break it down, so much better. When it gets down into our stomach, it's easier for our stomach to start working on the proteins. And then as it goes into our small intestine, and that's where the real digestive process starts and the absorption, it's just so much easier on your digestive system when it's starting with like, I guess it's called a bolus, but it's essentially mush than having particles of food going down in there. So it's just easier on the system, easier on the stomach.
Yeah, no, Heather's absolutely right. The more work you do here, the less work the rest of your digestive system has to do. And really, this is your mouth is the only real impact you have on digestion. Once your food has been swallowed, you can, somewhat influence what happens the rest of the way. But really, the greatest control we have is with chewing. But I'm going to take it one step backwards and say that digestion actually starts with your parasympathetic nervous system. Because
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, go for it.
your nervous system has two states: rest and digest, or fight or flight. And you can't be in both states at the same time. You're in one or in the other. So in order to rest and digest, you've got to be in the parasympathetic state. And that could be think about it this way. You're home at the end of the day, maybe you're on your own, you sit in front of the TV and you turn on the news. And the news is never like happy and love and kindness and gratitude. It's always like war and crime and,
the stuff
arguments.
that sells, right?
Yeah, precisely.
Exactly.
So that is specifically designed to put your body in a stressed state. So your adrenaline increases, your nervous system goes into the sympathetic state. You can't digest when you're watching the news. You can't digest when you're watching a scary movie or a frightening show or a suspenseful show, or when you're having an argument at the table with your family or with your beautiful wife. So you need to be calm. And there's an easy way to do that. Before you take a bite of food, take a few really deep cleansing breaths. And usually 3 or 4 deep breaths will do it. It'll put you into the calmer state, trigger your parasympathetic nervous system so that your mouth can start producing saliva and your stomach can start producing gastric acids, and your liver can start making bile, and your small intestine can start making the enzymes that it needs to receive food. But when you're eating at your desk, when you're working, when you're eating in the car, when you're arguing, when you're eating with people that you're not getting along with, you're better off going into a room by yourself, taking your deep breaths before you take your first bite of food. And it's imperative, if you're trying to rebuild your digestive system, that's where you start.
Yeah, and there's another point that, Han, you talk about a lot, since that's one of your main things, is the cooking part. And
I was just gonna say that. You read my mind.
Yeah, I didn't even read your notes.
That's
good. Yeah, so why is cooking, if we can, because obviously there's constraints in today's world, and in an ideal world, it would be great if we could all do all the things, but if we do get a chance to cook our meal ourselves, why is it important and what role does it play in digestion itself?
Well, I think it gives us that moment to take that breath, first of all, because if you think about what we should be technically doing, is we should be going out onto our land and picking food, which we luckily can do sometimes, but we get the food and then we have to sit down. Like, eating and prepping food and preparing food is a real cultural thing. And I feel like Westerners maybe have this less than maybe even in Europe, but we are kind of losing that connectivity with one another at that time. So that's just one point on it. But essentially, when you are preparing the food, it gives your body that chance, I think, to go back into the parasympathetic state. And then also all the smells and all of the, volatile oils that are coming off of all the food, that helps to really stimulate all of the, the functions of our digestive system, saliva. So like when you smell something good, your mouth salivates, and that's just the from the smell. And so, you're producing the enzymes there, your body starts producing the enzymes in your mouth in order to get your body excited to eat. And so if you're just going to the store and you're buying that processed food or you're buying that packaged food, you haven't done anything to prepare yourself to sit down. Not only are we losing the connection between one another, but we're losing that connection to our food as well. And I feel like when you lose that connection, you lose a lot of other things downstream. I say this a lot, but downstream, again, you don't have the digestive juices flowing. You haven't taken that moment to be thankful for your food even, or to have gratitude for what you're eating. And so I think mentally speaking too, it's a process that we are missing out on.
I was
giggling. I think we have to constantly remember that food is meant for nourishment. Like we are actually nourishing our body. And we can also use it as a moment to nourish our mind as well. Take that moment, as Lynne was saying, to just be grateful and thankful for the meal in front of us. Smell it, get the saliva going, do your deep breathing, as Lisa had said, and it doesn't have to, it takes a moment to do it, but it can really change the way your body accepts and processes the food. Yeah.
I have something to say. I think we're living in such a time where depletion is something that we're kind of fed all the time by, especially, I'm going to say by people, like you need to calories in, calories out, be in a deficit to lose weight, do all of these things, deplete. And
you gotta fill the bucket at some point.
Right. So like if I know you talk a lot about this, like we are like a battery, right? And all of those things. So if you're constantly depleting, and if our food sources are constantly depleted already, like by the way that we're farming and the way that we're actually creating and growing our food, you're constantly depleting yourself. And like Heather said, nourishment is so important. And it's not just about the nourishment that the food is giving you, but the nourishment that you're giving to yourself in that process as well. You're taking the time, you're de-stressing, you're connecting with, your true nature really in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I guess that brings me to a point that I've heard you mention a few times, is that we have two brains. We have one up here and we have one down inside our stomach, or as part of our digestive system. Can you guys talk about this idea a little bit more? Because I find it fascinating that I forget the number, you guys can probably enlighten me on this, but I think it's a majority of serotonin, which is a major hormone inside the brain, is actually produced inside our gut. Is that correct?
Yes. 95% of serotonin is produced in our gut, and then 70 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut as well. Yeah.
So let's talk about this for a bit, because I find it fascinating that we don't, talk about the digestive system more, given how important its role is in our body, whether it's for the mental side of things, or like you said, the immune side of things. So let's talk about this for a minute. Where do you want to start?
I kind of want to just say, like, one thing that people maybe don't think about is that the digestive system is actually on the outside of our body. Like, if you think about it, there's a hole from one end to the other end.
Yeah,
go
ahead. Yeah.
I always think about that, and I always think, oh, that's kind of trippy, but it is kind of
same with the lungs.
Yeah,
I say the same thing with the lungs. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and the microbes, there's so many things to talk about, but the microbes, I think microbiome is probably key.
So why do we have microbes inside our gut?
Well, they actually help to digest our food. So that's one of the big things, is part of the immune system.
They produce micronutrients for us as well.
Absolutely, like
Vitamins.
vitamin K, yeah.
K2, well, K vitamins.
So I guess we have a symbiotic relationship with the descendant of a bacteria, which is the mitochondria inside our cells.
Every living thing has a symbiotic relationship with a microbiome. Soil, plants, fungi, us. It doesn't matter what you're looking at, trees, we all are symbiotic with a microbiome. And so if
they're inside our cells and they're inside our gut too, and we have to
and we tend to think of the microbiome as just being in the gut, but it's not. We have microbiomes all over our body, all in our skin, in our belly button. Our belly button has its very own microbiome. So the gut microbiome happens to be the largest in the body, and it's the one that is of the most focus, because at this point in time, I mean, nutritional science is constantly changing. So 10 years from now, we might be having a completely just different discussion about this. But at the moment, what we understand is that the various functions in the symbiotic relationship, as you said, between the gut microbes and the rest of our body is so powerful. And it's so powerful in the fact that medicine and research is now shifting to the digestive system. So rather than looking at, okay, like what's happening in the lungs, what's happening in other cells of the body, like let's see what the connection is between the microbiome and literally every single feature and function and system in the body, because it seems to all start there from what we understand right now.
Are there any other interesting links? I talked about the serotonin for a second there. What are the interesting or the links that are worth mentioning between our gut microbiome and our brain? If you guys wanted to.
Maybe then we have to talk more about the vagus nerve, and I think Lisa's the digestive queen. So
well, I don't know about that, but it's true. We used to think that it was just the brain, sending out messages, but we know that the gut sends out just as many messages, and the brain and the gut connect. It's two-way communication using the vagus nerve, as Lynne said, to communicate. And like you said, Sean, 95% of this, I studied psychology in university. I was going to become a psychologist. And what I learned was that the nervous system made serotonin and all the other neurotransmitters, hence the name neurotransmitters. Now we know that a lot of them, at least 40 have been identified, that are made in the gut. So yes, 95% of the serotonin, at least 50% of our dopamine, so many others have been identified now. So when you think about it that way, how have we treated, say, depression for all these years? We treat them with SSRIs, with medications to raise serotonin levels, yet we're looking in the wrong direction, because if your nervous system is not the source of your serotonin, it makes sense to support your gut health if your body's making its own serotonin. So why is what's so depleted in your gut? So that's a big thing. The implications in mental health are absolutely huge. And in fact, it's so powerful. A term has been coined called psychobiotics. So we have like probiotics and antibiotics and prebiotics. Now, psychobiotics is types of microbes, specific microbes that infer such a powerful effect on the host that eventually specific microbes might be prescribed to treat mental illness. So either along with medications or in lieu of certain medications that have been traditionally used. So this opens up a whole new world for mental health and the connection to the microbiome. So
it's really interesting. And the complementarity, is that a word in English?
Complementary? Yes.
Complementarity.
No, it's
The
complementary.
No, two things are complementary, but the complementarity of one thing with another, is that a word? I invent words in English sometimes. So Eddie, the togetherness of exercise and nutrition here is really what comes to my mind, obviously, because that's usually what I'm talking and thinking about. But the effect of optimized, let's call it, nutrition for our gut and thus for our brain, and then also the positive impact of exercise and movement and being physically active that this has on not only our body, but on our brain as well. So those really go hand in hand when it comes to, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy mind, those two.
Well, and inflammation in the body, like if you have a compromised gut, or you have dysbiosis, or there's one, because it's not just microbes per se, there's fungal, there's, bacteria, there's all of these parts of our microbiome, and if one is out of balance over another, then it can cause inflammation too. So maybe your recovery is going to be compromised if you're not supporting your digestive health as well.
Yeah, and I guess that ties into, I talked about the 4-pillar approach that you guys have, and that I guess we've touched on all of them without mentioning them. So let's talk about those 4 pillars for health. What are they? And I think that's going to help kind of tie together everything that we've gone through so far, because like I said, we have touched on each one of them. So Han, do you want to start?
Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah,
okay.
you go.
Well, I think the reason that you can hear the 4-pillar approach, used in other areas. We can't claim our
Yeah, it's not,
territory.
we're not inventing anything here. It's
No.
but they're just, I think it's a useful, I always say that all models are wrong, but some are useful, from George Box. And this is a useful model in my opinion. It's simplified, but it's simple enough for everybody to grapple with it. And it is a good way to start thinking about our health, because it's going to point us in the right direction.
So the reason
It
that
covers most of our bases.
yeah, exactly. All the bases. So
That's
the
right.
reason that we teach a 4-pillar approach in our like coaching, is that because of our experience within the coaching realm, the 3 of us came together and we're like, okay, well, what are the most important pillars that we have to touch on in order to make the most change? Because it's very common to see, one person talking about just nutrition, one person talking about just fitness, one person talking about just stress and just sleep. But something at the foundation that we decided really had to be there was self-care as the basis of the 4 pillars. So we kind of have a six-step approach. And the first one is the mindset and the decision to make change and the decision to have a healthier lifestyle. And then once you kind of have that mindset in place, and I'll let you guys ladies go on this after. And then after you have that self-care basis, you have to then think about stress, sleep, movement, and nutrition. And those are the 4 pillars. And you can get quite far with, just fitness or just nutrition, but to have like true health and wellness, you have to have those 4 pillars, and then you'll get to the, optimal function. Let's say I was listening to a Chris Kresser podcast, and this kind of goes back to the micronutrient side, but they were talking about phytonutrients, which is another vast topic. But he was talking about, these symptoms that we have and these issues that we have, like fatigue and energy issues and IBS and all of these things. We look at vitamins as recommended daily intake to make sure that we don't get diseases like beriberi or scurvy, vitamin C for scurvy. And that was just to prevent pathological disease. But now we have to start understanding what these pillars, and then also what comes from all of these things in order to have optimal function. And so, that's the top of our 4-pillar approach, is the optimal wellness and optimal function and longevity. Like we want to live past 50 and not have health issues and not have these problems. So that's kind of why we chose those things, because these were the ones that came up the most in all of our experience working with clients. You can touch on the fitness, like Heather said, that's the way she went, on her breast cancer journey. But then there was a piece missing, and the traditional method of weight loss might only work for a time being. And then you got to start looking at the microbiome and see if there's toxins and inflammation and all of those other things that could be contributing. So on a blanket level, that's kind of why we went this route and why we call it, our philosophy and our 4-pillar approach to wellness.
And I think these are the 4 pillars that we actually have control over. Like we can't control our genes to a certain extent. I mean, there's epigenetics and you can switch things up.
Not yet. Not yet.
What's that?
Not yet. We don't yet have control over our genes. It's coming.
It's coming. It absolutely, with epigenetics, is opening up a whole new world. And that's a whole fabulous topic on its own. But, those 4 pillars are ones that most clients and most people are able to, to have some level of control over, and to make the changes to get where they want to go. So, that's why we really focus on those.
And just to be clear, the 4 pillars that we're referring to are nutrition, of course, sleep, stress management, and exercise. So, we are, each of us came from different backgrounds. And I came from nutrition, and like I said at the beginning, I wanted to save the world with nutrition, thinking that this was going to be the answer. And one of my first full-time jobs was in a chain of fitness clubs. I was hired as the nutrition director, thinking I'm going to help everybody. But person after client would come into my office and tell me that they had high blood pressure, but then they started exercising and their blood pressure is normal, that they had sleep apnea and they started exercising and now they can sleep through the night and they don't need their CPAP, that they had so much stress, but now their stress is managed. And I thought, God, you don't even need me here. Like, exercise is a big part of of wellness.
Absolutely,
and we are not one thing. We're everything. We can do nutrition right, we can sleep right, we can exercise right, but if we can't manage our stress, then we're constantly inflamed. Our nervous system is constantly overactive. We crash, we have high cortisol, and then maybe burnout. And so we need to get them all in balance. And that's why our approach is truly holistic, because it isn't just looking at one area of wellness.
I guess that's one of the difficulties in today's world, because we like to compartmentalize things, and it is necessary to some extent in order to dig down into certain topics, with more precision. But then we tend to over specialize, and we forget to, or we like going down rabbit holes, but we often forget to come out of them and to look at what we found and integrate it into all the other aspects of it. So that's, I think, why the term holistic, the term integrative, integration, all those things are very important, because I guess we need to go that step farther, right? We've been able to dig into all those topics in our Western mindset or frame of mind and understand the minutia of different things to the nth degree, but now we need to bring it all together and make it work together, because as you guys eloquently mentioned, we need all of those parts for us, for our bodies and our minds and ourselves to function. We dissociate the two, right? We say the mind and the body, but they're not. They're together. It's just you. It's just the person as a whole. But it's hard to think in those ways when you're used to always breaking things down into little boxes. So yeah, do you guys have any tips on that? On how do we think more holistically in our compartmentalized brains?
You're looking at me. Do you want
I
me
don't
to
know.
start? Well, this is my jam, really. Like, I mean, I think the way that society is set up now, everything that we're taught is compartmentalized, like you said. Like, you are taught, math, science, social studies. Doctors are sent to school and they're taught and specialized in one area, but realizing that the body is a whole unit and not parts throughout. And society now is running on 9 to 5, and if the cog doesn't run, then we might think that the world is going to crumble, and we want quick fixes. That's what we've been sold, is this pill is going to solve your issue, this thing is going to solve your issue, and that's it. And you don't have to put the work in, and you don't have to try and make change and be a participant in your own well-being. And I don't know how much you've ever talked about like our story over the last 8 years on your podcast.
What parts of our story?
Well, just the journey that we've been on, and seeing okay, well, we started out as entrepreneurs, but we worked 60 hours a week each, and we had a kid who didn't sleep, and we kept going and going and going and going on that rat race that I'm talking about, the 9 to 5. And I burnt out, and I didn't say anything for a long time, and I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and the stress just became too much, and I burnt out, probably ended up with autoimmune issues because of all of those things, compromised gut health, not sleeping, being stressed out. And then it just pushed me into a complete wall, and I literally couldn't function. And so now, it's only pushed me further to believe that I'm going to say the power behind these tools are so important. And we've changed our lives a lot in using these things, especially exercise. I mean, you use exercise. Most people probably don't know this, but I too have to do zone 2 work to, but at the base of energy in our cells and all of those things is, if I get the stress and in line and calm down, and I have sleep and I have good nutrition and I'm moving, we've seen an insane increase in my well-being over the last 3 years. It's just on an uphill slope now using all of these tools, and I think it's not about the quick fix. It's about maybe how we can undo some of the behaviors that we've been taught, and the tips and tricks. I mean,
yeah, I guess the one thing that comes to mind is
one thing at a time.
yeah, and it's our responsibility to impart change. And Heather, I like what you said before. We have control over those things, and we probably spend too much time thinking about things that we cannot impact in any way, shape, or form, that are just what they are, and we have to just deal with them. And I think that's one of the most helpful quotes I've heard is, "Oh, what's your advice?" I forget what the advice was for. I'm butchering it, but it was essentially make a list of all the problems that you have, and then just erase all the ones that you have no control over, and then start acting on the ones that you do have control over. And in line with that, people might say, "Yeah, but all those things are hard." And I saw a post the other day that really stuck to me, and it's, yeah, making nutritional change is hard, but being overweight is hard as well. Exercise and discipline is hard, but then being completely out of shape is hard. And I think we can make the parallel with any situation, and we have a choice. And obviously there's some that require more work, more discipline, and more time than others, but usually the good things don't happen by the path of least resistance. We usually have to go through a little bit of work to get to the good place. So what are some of the actions that people can start taking in order to, in light of what we talked about, those 4 pillars, some simple starting points? We covered sleep quite extensively, and I think that was really good. So stress management, exercise, nutrition, what do people need to start thinking about just to have the groundwork laid out?
Well, you know what? I think the first thing is to have a goal, right? So so you know where you're going, and then you do one step. And I'm a personal trainer. I sometimes am challenged to get myself down to the gym or do my, and I know. So, and I know the majority of people that are listening are probably fitness professionals or they're into fitness, but there's a lot of people that, going to the gym, it's very intimidating, doing anything. Taking small steps, putting your sneakers by the door, packing a gym bag, having cues, right? Just little things, taking one step at a time and then building on it. Every time you have a success, then you continue on. That would be on the exercise part. And I know you've got clients yourself, Sean, and getting people, you can help get them motivated, but it has to come from them. It has to be their decision. But the way to do it, start small, build on the success. And like I said, it could be something simple like getting into a walking program. The first step is to put sneakers by the door, and those sneakers become the cue, and then tie it into something else that they do regularly. Hey, after dinner, I put the dishes in the dishwasher, and then I'm going to put my sneakers on and go for my walk. And eventually it becomes like, oh, after dishes, I put my sneakers on and I go for a walk. That's just part of what they become. Or what they do.
Yeah, I like the idea of small steps. There's this book called Small Steps. There's a book called Switch from Dan and Phil Heath that I remember reading a few years ago, and he talks about inch pebbles rather than milestones, because a mile is a long way to go when you're just starting to walk. And so if you think in just inches instead, and you try to put the bar as low as you can so that you can clear it, and then you do that repetitively day after day, and this is actually how you form a habit, right? It's not just taking a swing at the hardest thing that you can once and then be exhausted and give up. It's actually, okay, I'm gonna have to do that thing successfully dozens of times in a row for it to be ingrained in who I am and how I do things. And then from there I can start reaching or aiming a little bit higher and keep building the process like this, right?
Yeah, and it takes on average about 66 days to build a habit. Some are easier to do than others. Like there's a great book called Tiny Habits. I believe the author's name is BJ Fogg, Fogg. And that's what he advocates, literally taking tiny little steps. and eventually they build on each other and you get success, and then success breeds more success, right? And that's how you gradually build your habit. So absolutely, it does take time.
And taking the same approach with your goal setting too. When I was trying to lose weight, my goal was 50 pounds, but that was such a lofty goal. Like, it was overwhelming, and my brain knew that I wasn't capable. So breaking it down to, well, let's start with 5 pounds, 5 pounds gone. Let's do another 5 pounds. So taking your ultimate goal, I'm going to run a marathon. You don't just run a marathon. You start by training slowly, right? So same thing, break down your goals. This is my ultimate goal, and these are the steps that I'm going to take. And when you plan it that way, and same with nutrition, which is another one of our 4 pillars, and the one that we focus on because we're nutritionists. But your diet might be totally crappy, or you just don't know where to start. Start with the obvious, like start by taking out a few of the ingredients or substituting. If you're addicted to chocolate, start by eating dark chocolate instead of the cheap milk chocolate, crappy like Snickers bars or whatever. Like, start introducing some dark chocolate, some other, sweeten your foods with other types of ingredients instead of sugar. Start removing some of the ingredients that are not good for you, and by introducing more. Right now, going back to the microbiome, because as Lynn said, I'm completely obsessed with it. We need 30 unique vegetables a week, including probiotic foods, like fermented foods, to support our microbiome. All right, everyone who's listening to this is freaking out. And I know, like, when I first read that, I was like, I can't even name 30 vegetables. That's the ultimate goal, right? I know you can. That's the ultimate goal. You probably got 30 vegetables growing in your garden right now.
Exactly.
So if that's the ultimate goal, okay, let's break it down. Like, how can I start introducing more vegetables into my diet? So for me, I have a couple of scrambled free-range organic eggs every morning for breakfast. That's another goal, right? Like, let's start, taking out the conventional foods and adding some organic foods or some free run, or like, natural colors instead of artificial colors. Like, there's lots of room to change in nutrition. So for my breakfast every morning, I will have, we always have vegetables in the fridge now. So grilled vegetables are just cut up from leftovers from dinner. I'll put them into my omelet. My omelet is 6 times the size because it's full of vegetables, and I'll count how many vegetables have I already eaten. And usually I can get 6 or 7 different vegetables out of the way just at breakfast, just by making that one little step. So, eventually you get to that 30 different vegetables a week.
And if that sounds a little bit intimidating, one of the things that I say to my clients, even before I take anything out of their diet, let's start adding some stuff in. And a lot of times they'll say, what? We're adding stuff in? Because when we usually do a food journal with our clients. And the first thing I'll look for is, are they getting their leafy greens? Are they getting these things? And a lot of times they're not getting that many servings of vegetables or fruit in their diet. So the first thing they'll say, we're going to start adding some stuff in. We're going to have some leafy greens every day. What ends up happening is, as they start to eat more of this nutritious food that's providing them with all the nourishment, with all those wonderful micronutrients, they naturally want to start getting rid of a lot of the other items that maybe are not as nutritious for them, because our microbiome will actually tell our brain what it wants. And the more nourishing food we put in our body, that's actually what they want, right? And so a lot of our cravings, like for chips and all that kind of, is because if that's what we've been feeding our microbiome, that's what they're asking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely tell when I eat more garbage, it just feeds into me wanting more garbage to eat. And
absolutely.
And then the link as well with lack of sleep. If I don't sleep well, I want to eat more junk. And if I'm well rested, I'm more likely to, I know I'm just going to have, an omelet. I'm going to have some tuna. I'm going to have, what's in the fridge, rather than just go out and buy something, or really crave that dessert that I'm having, mid-afternoon or something like that. On that topic, I guess meal prepping and meal planning is something that is important, because in today's busy world, not everybody has time to, take even half an hour at every meal to cook something fresh. So, and Lynn, you can probably take that one away, since you've excelled in that department and still do.
I try.
Yeah, we haven't been on the meal prep train in the last little bit, but we know that whenever we do, everything works so much better. So why should people start considering meal prepping as a strategy to implement in order to help their, you know, overall, I guess, support their overall goals and their health as well?
Well, I'm going to go back to kind of what Heather said in the sense that, you know, it's this mindset shift in terms of adding something in and not feeling like you're taking something away. So back to, you know, nourishing yourself in the sense that you can then, well, I'm going to talk about meal prep in a sec, but if you can see that you're nourishing yourself and giving to yourself, it's going to feed your soul, you know, and that, I think, I'm going to just touch on this like whole, like, how do you implement the four pillars thing is like, are you doing something that you love? And if you are doing something that you love, then you're going to have the energy in order to implement all these other things that may feel difficult at the beginning. But that small shift in mindset being like, I'm nourishing myself. I am doing this for what is going to literally feed me in the future. You know, body, mind, soul, all of it is going to feed you in the future. So I think, you know, just kind of taking that step and approach to, I'm going to add stuff in and not feel depleted. You know, I'm not taking anything away from myself. I'm literally giving myself presence for the future. And that's, you know, if we build on the future, I like to say, you know, the seeds we plant today are going to feed you extensively into the future, because that's really what it is, whether we're talking about planting or whether we're talking about food or goals or exercise or anything. So meal prep, obviously I ran a meal prep business and, you know, I was consulting for a really long time, and I didn't see that my clients were making the changes that they needed. And that was before I had a 4-pillar approach, of course. But I think meal prepping, goes back to what I said before in terms of, you know, connecting back with your food, getting your digestion back in place, understanding what you're eating too. You know, like when we grab that processed food, there could be 50 ingredients in it. You know, like an artificial flavor can have up to 100 ingredients in it. And again, in Europe, it's a little bit different than North America, but when you meal prep, you can see what you're putting into your body and you can plan accordingly. So whether you're an individual who is just, you know, one of us folks who doesn't exercise all the time, you know, you can add these vegetables in, you can know that you're getting the nutrients that you need. You can know that you're setting yourself up for success. It's just as important or more important for an athlete to be able to say, okay, I'm getting the macronutrients that I need, plus all the other things in order to make sure that my systems are working optimally for me. But I think it's about visualizing what you're putting into your body too. And you know what you're eating, you know where it comes from, you know, all of the kind of importance of what you have here in the fridge, maybe.
What are some of your best tips for meal prepping?
Well, I'm a
Batch cooking.
Yeah, I was gonna say batch cooking, finding recipes that you like, maybe that are a play on things that you like to eat out. Like maybe you really like Chinese food. Well, find a Chinese recipe, like a chow mein recipe or some kind of recipe that you can kind of play on. There's so many recipes out there
I guess one thing you've taught me is start with the recipe and then build your shopping list based on that. So then you just buy the things that you need to, you know, make
just do that,
the meals, and that already just simplifies. Because if you're not like her, which is she can just make something out of nothing in the kitchen, and most people are not like that. So whatever you have in the house in that situation, you can make something delicious out of it. But for most people that don't have that creative brain around food, having the meals in mind first and then shopping for those meals, I guess, simplifies the process.
Well, and that's kind of where I started, you know, like I would teach cooking classes, we would batch cook, you know, 21 different meals. Like, here's all the food, this is the recipe, let's follow it and then see. And what people don't actually realize is that by batch cooking at the beginning of the week, you're saving numerous hours, not just on cooking, but on dishes and things like that. Because instead of after every single meal, you have dishes to do, you don't have those things anymore. And you end up spending less money. People think, oh, well, if I go to the grocery store and I don't buy processed food, it's going to be more expensive. But what happens is people tend to use less, throw out less. I know, Lisa, we've talked about sometimes when you buy these greens and they just sit in the fridge and then you don't use them up at the end of the week, then you're just throwing that food away. I think it's like over 1 billion pounds of food are thrown out each year, in the US alone. And so we have this concept that we have to continuously keep growing more food and we're running out of food, but it's, how do we use the food that we actually have to our advantage? And like you said, no, don't go hungry. Don't go shopping hungry. Don't do that. He does that.
I might be a professional at this.
Yeah. And then I guess the last tip I have before I give it over to Lisa and Heather is, you might think you're out of food, but can you get creative? There's these apps now where you can go on and put the 5 ingredients that you have in your cupboard and it gives you a recipe to follow. And I'm like that. I can look in the cupboard and I can see all the things that I have and I can turn it into something. And like Sean said, not everybody is like that, but there are apps now that do this for you, which is really handy. I did a video once on this where I thought we had to go shopping. So I opened up the fridge, I opened up the freezer, I opened up the cupboards, I looked in our pantry, like, what do we still have? Can we make a meal out of it? So I thought we had to go shopping. And I actually ended up making a meal plan for 3 more days after that. So I pulled, all this food together out of nowhere, but it's just taking the time to put it all down on paper and thinking about it a little bit and putting things together. I mean, we all know like ground beef and pasta sauce go together. So if you have those, you tuck them away. Eggs and vegetables, tuck those away. And you can make a massive omelet, or like you said, or a frittata or something that, houses a lot of these things that we think we don't need or we are out of. Yeah.
For meal prep, it brings me back to my childhood because my mom used to create a menu for the week and put it on the fridge. And then when they grocery shopped, that's what they bought for everything for the menu for the week. And we kind of still do that today. I mean, especially with the price of food nowadays, you don't want anything to go to waste. And we do things for multi-purpose, like if we know we're going to be busy for a few days, might go get a roast chicken or either buy a roast chicken or a roasted chicken and then use it for different meals. Like, we might have chicken and salad, or with the leftover chicken, I had roast chicken. I made chicken soup yesterday. So there's different things that you can do that way to be more efficient. We talked about batch cooking. A lot of my clients will maybe set aside a few hours on a Sunday and do bigger batches of rice or quinoa or something to have cut up vegetables to prepare for the week, so that when they get home from work and they're pressed for time, all of that stuff is available. And I mean, sometimes even in the stores you can buy vegetables that are all cut up, but it's great if you buy it and do it yourself, because then especially if you can get some organic or spray-free vegetables, and then you're not eating the pesticides. But and actually, Lisa just completed our meal planning course. She's got lots of tips as well.
Well, we waste 35% of the food that we buy. Think about that number. 35% is staggering, right? And like Lynne said, if you just look through your cupboards or your fridge or your freezer, you're going to find stuff in there that's probably been in there for a long time. Exactly. And so, yes, meal planning is number one for all of my clients. That is one of the first things that we do, is just sit down together and come up with, what do you like? How can we build meals around this? And I really encourage people to take some time on a weekend perhaps and just come up with like just the dinners, because breakfast usually takes care of itself. Lunch is usually pretty easy. And if you're really organized, you can save some of your dinner for lunch the next day. So you really just need to come up with like 5 or 6 dinners for the week. And then, as you said, Sean, and there's templates you can print off like Pinterest or make it yourself, where you have the page is your grocery list and the other half the page is your menu plan and the other half is your grocery list. So as you're coming up with your menu plan, you can write down the ingredients that you're going to need. And there's apps that will like do this for you. And they even give you the recipes and they make the grocery list generated for you based on the menu plan. So like, there's so many opportunities to do this, and it only takes 5 minutes, but for me, one of the worst parts of my day is when I haven't planned dinner and I'm on my way home and I know that it's an hour away and we have nothing like ready or nothing thawed or nothing prepared. And, you know, we make everything from scratch. So everything takes a long time to make. So I really need to think ahead of time. And you don't have, it takes all the thinking work out of your week. It's like you all said, you know, the ingredients are there, everything is done, your groceries have been purchased. It just saves you so much time and especially money. And right now we can't afford to throw away money. The price of eggs, the price of literally every single food and housing and like gas, everything is out of control right now around the world. So we really have to hunker down and make the most with what we've got and become more efficient. We all have to adjust.
Yeah, we have to adjust. And yeah, I like what you said about what you guys said about the base of the 4-pillar approach, self-care, and thinking about things that you love doing. Because like you said, if you don't do something that you love, where are you going to find the energy to do all those things? So I think it's a good place to start thinking. We don't necessarily think that far. We just think, okay, I need to make that food, I need to do this, I need to do that. But coming out of this a little bit and having a broader view and thinking, okay, if I do something for myself for a little bit, take care of myself, then I'll have more energy to put into all those things. And then it's a positively reinforcing cycle that you're just going to keep going through and feeding into. So you guys have been working on this program for what, a couple of years now?
No, yes.
something like that. How did it start? How did it come about? And then I guess we haven't talked about it yet. So tell us a little bit about what this program is. But how did it start? Why did you guys decide to do this?
Well, I'll let Heather and Lisa go on this one first because I
was
given.
Well, I in the beginning when I introduced myself, I talked about the fact that as a personal trainer, I really felt the need to talk to clients about nutrition, but I didn't feel like I had the I guess the background or the information that I needed. And I also knew as a cancer survivor that I needed to really pay attention to my nutrition as part of my prevention for cancer recurrence. So fast forward, I guess it was back in 2019, we started Midexin, which is an online program or online resource for personal trainers, fitness professionals in the field of medical fitness exercise. So we have courses and certifications. We didn't have anything on nutrition. So I thought, you know, perfect. We need to have a more natural nutrition approach for personal trainers. There's nutrition programs out there, as we talked about, they really focus on macros. We wanted to focus on what actually nourishes our body, more on the micronutrients and how everything works holistically in the body. So actually approached Lisa with all of her experience. Lisa was actually a mentor for me. So I was so excited to have her to be part of the project. We started on it. Lynne came in as well, probably within that year.
Yeah.
And we originally came up with the Natural Nutrition Coach program, which was a 25-30 hour program for personal trainers, fitness professionals to take. But then we realized as we were going through, there was so much more information. If people were really truly wanting to know more about how to nourish the body, how to help their clients, and so on, they just needed more in-depth information. And about 2 years ago, we started down this road. We've created all our own materials, all from our own experience of what we felt was really important to know. But the great thing about this is a lot of the textbooks that are in other programs, they almost become outdated by the time they go to publication. I know from personal experience, some of the programs I've been in, the books were like 10, 15 years old. Our research is so current. As a matter of fact, I mean, we've got studies that we cite that literally came out in October, like last month. So, you know, the most recent research, and we've created these materials. We're so excited and passionate about this program. You know, again, we cover all the 4 pillars throughout.
Mhm. So for every body system, for example, that we discuss, we go into a lot of detail about obviously digestion, but every system in the body, urinary, nervous system, the immune system, etc. So once the description and what happens and how nutrients have an influence in their roles within that system, then we go into the protocols. So when you are working with someone or even for yourself, this is how you address this system nutritionally. This is how you address it by improving your sleep. This is what you can do to improve your stress levels. And as you improve your stress levels, pardon me, these are the changes you should recognize in the system. And with exercise, the appropriate or the most suitable types of movement for that particular system. So that's where our 4 pillars approach comes in. So we have to address all aspects in order to I don't want to use the word treat, but to improve your well-being.
Yeah.
What demographic is this course tailored to specifically? Is it for anybody who wants to get accredited or certified in nutrition? Is it a certification? Do you get a diploma? What's the?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So because we're talking about macro and micro today, the macro vision, like for this program, because we are pulling from all of our unique experiences, the 3 of us, is the first part would be nutrition, and then coaching, and then the business part. So, and that's in our biggest program that's coming out hopefully in January or February. Right now we have the basics. So it's digestive health, the foundations in natural nutrition, so covering the macro and the micronutrients, and then also meal planning. Now you ask what demographic this is for, and I know when I was working with our copywriter, it was really difficult for me to say, oh, it's just for XYZ, because I'm of the opinion that we can all benefit from this. It can.
Of course, who's going to benefit the most from the course?
I think it would be an adjunct to people who are already in the wellness or fitness industry, yoga instructors, fitness professionals, chiropractic professionals, osteopaths, kinesiologists,
Massage
therapists,
Yeah, anybody who's working with clients, patients, athletes, and who wants to get a better grasp on nutrition and how this kind of
Absolutely.
ties into the whole picture.
So this little bundle that we've put together as an introduction to natural nutrition, it is available. We do provide a certificate of completion at the end, and then this bigger program that we will be launching next year will be accredited as a health coaching certification. So
how long is that one going to be?
So this one that we have right now is 35 hours, and the one that we're launching is somewhere between 230 and 250 hours.
Right. So it's going to be a proper certification.
Certification.
It's not just the course that you take on the weekend and then you.
Yeah, you're reading textbooks, you are answering quizzes, you are going through everything.
You guys wrote all the material. That's what you said, huh?
All the material is written by us. So
Yes.
nutrition, coaching, and business.
Which is pretty awesome. Sorry to cut you off, because as you were saying, Heather, before, you guys have written your own material. It's current. That's one thing that you find, like, the bigger the entity, as a generalization, the bigger the entity, the slower it moves, right? The Titanic is going straight into the iceberg because it's got too much, it's too big. You can't move it fast enough. And it's the same with all these big organizations. You have to go through 7 layers of hierarchy to get anything to change. And like you said, by the time the textbook's approved, it's already out of date. And I guess we're more nimble as small organizations, and you obviously are, the 3 of you, because you're able to do all that work and have it done fast and make sure that you're always up to date with all the material, which I think is a huge asset compared to the other options that are currently available.
Let me tell you, the last 2 years has not felt slow. So
No.
we have worked our asses off to get
I can attest to that.
Yeah. But what's also really unique about this program compared to other programs out there, aside from our 4 pillars approach, is that we cover every aspect. And because the 3 of us come from different backgrounds, Lynne having the business background and social media expertise, Heather being a fitness trainer and in the exercise world, and me being really centered around nutrition, we've put our minds and our knowledge and our experience together. So the program is, yes, nutrition and health, also a very strong coaching element, because you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So the purpose behind the coaching part, which is a huge piece of the program, is to help our clients, to encourage them to actually do the follow through with the recommendations that we've made. And I know you're smiling, Sean, because you're probably dealing with this with your own clients, right? It's like, yes, I ask you to do this stretch every day or whatever, and you do it once a week. Like, a lot of people are like that. So how do we encourage them to actually, follow through? And then, of course, business, because a lot of us are entrepreneurs, and we can have all the knowledge in our heads, and we're amazing at, you can be absolutely amazing at what you do and have the world's most knowledge, but if you can't execute it in a business, and you can't, it's hard to be a professional and a business person at the same time. Those are two very different, very separate hats. So Lynne teaches us how to become entrepreneurs, how to organize our business, like from start to finish. And she helps with that process along the way. So when you take the bigger program, which will be rolling out in the spring, you have everything you need in order, it's almost like turnkey. You have everything you need in order to operate a successful nutrition counseling practice.
Absolutely. And with the program that we have available now, so the Essentials of Nutrition bundle, all of these 3 courses are part of the bigger program.
Right.
And so you get a head start, but these 3 courses on their own, our Essentials bundle, actually is a great knowledge for, as we talked about, for anyone to have personally, and also to work with their clients. It gives them a great head start. Then if they actually want to become a registered health coach, they can take the larger program and work towards that. So depending on what their goal is.
Well, we'll definitely put
the Essentials bundle provides a really good foundation.
Yeah, for anybody interested, we'll put the link in the description of the podcast. And going back to what you were saying about the larger program, Lisa, I think it's you cannot get around talking about the business side, the entrepreneurial side, and the communication, social media in today's world, because, and that's what we've seen. I mean, that's what I saw when I started personal training. I got a certification, and then I didn't know what to do because I had 0 clients. Nobody knew what I was doing, and I didn't know where to start. So I had to figure it out. And same when Lynne started her business, and she already had experience in different fields, which helped her a lot with kickstarting those things. But most people that, maybe want to shift careers or shift gears or add nutrition as a string to their bow, as we say, to complement their approach, maybe haven't had that, the luck to see those things through. And I think that should be part of any program that's, worth talking about, the aspects of coaching, like you said, Lisa, because knowing the information and knowing how to get your clients to do the thing that they should do are 2 very different things. And then again, as you said, the business side and knowing how to run your business so it's profitable, simply because you need to pay your bills and you need to be able to live off of what you want to do, and you do. So it's great that you guys have integrated again all those different things. So there's all the information on nutrition itself and on health and your 4-pillar approach and what we've touched on today, plus more, much more. But then the business, and for me at least, that's the differentiating factor. And I haven't read the course, so I can't attest to the material itself, and I don't know enough about nutrition to even judge it. But I would say that's, for me, off the top of my head, a differentiating factor: the fact that you integrate the business aspect and the coaching aspect so much as main components of the main certification, right?
Yeah, well, like you said, you asked like just a few minutes ago, like, why did we start doing this in the first place? And yes, it originally started out with Heather and Lisa, but they came to me asking for the business part. And the reason that we put these things all in place is because the amount of people who get the certification that don't go on to start a business is staggering. I think it's 5% of the graduates from the school that we actually all went to. I'm not going to name names, but only 5% of them go out to actually start a business in natural nutrition.
And same with personal trainers.
I was just going to say, I'm sure it's the exact same with trainers here. They're not given enough coaching advice on how to actually work with their clients. They're not given any business advice. So where do you even go from there? If we're talking specifically about fitness professionals, like, okay, you can go to a box, you can a CrossFit gym, you can go to like a regular gym. What do you guys call it again in French? A Globo gym. A Globo gym. You can go into these Globo gyms times and, not use it or not even benefit from that certification that you get. And so having the business part, I think, is integral, and we give away all our trade secrets, just like Sean does
We do.
often. Well, give it away, we just want to share it so that we can see our folks who come through our program be successful. And so support is like something that we hit home all the time, is like, we are going to support you through each and every step of this, and that's like, my business is also a collaborator with the Health Coach Collaborative. The Holistic Nutrition Hub is used and taught within the entire program, so that when they go out and they are done, they will have the support that they need.
You could also do it yourself and just spend 10 years making mistakes and figuring it out,
100%.
right? So you got to have the choice. You take the program or you just do your own mistakes.
Yeah. Or go look on the internet. I mean, all this, I'm sure you talk about this all the time. It's like, all this information is available for free on the internet, but then you got to weed through it all. You got to find what works, and you got to actually try it out and see if it is working for you.
Yeah, but the synthesis is where the magic is. It's finding all the information organized in a thoughtful way and in a digestible way, so that we can. Did I?
You said
digest it?
digestible way.
I didn't even try. So good. Thanks for picking it up,
You're
because
welcome.
I was oblivious to my own magic here. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it is what it's about, right? It's about giving all that information in, or passing it on in a way that is coherent, that makes sense, and that is going to help the practitioner or the person. And if we talk about the essentials here, or the practitioner, if we talk about the complete course, in applying all those ideas and actually being able to live from our practice as a coach, as a nutrition practitioner, as a health coach. So this is something I guess that's really exciting about the course. You guys said early next year for the main course.
Yeah.
Do you have a date?
Yes.
No, because
You don't have a date.
well,
The pressure's on.
The pressure's on, guys. We're hoping February, right? I would say February next year for the health coaching, and then of course we have our essentials bundle available now. So
cool. So the bundle is linked in the description, and what we'll do is we'll do a follow-up podcast when you guys release the main course, so everybody knows about it. And I think that'll be a good way to dig into some of the topics that we haven't talked about, especially the coaching and the business aspect. I think these are topics that are near and dear to my heart, and I know you guys as well, and that I don't talk about enough on the podcast, but I would like to talk about more. So I think it's a good opportunity next time to, now we talked about nutrition today, and let's talk about coaching and the business aspects next time. I think that'll be a
and
great
anybody who
conversation.
wants to connect with me on business can reach out to me. I mean, it's universal. It doesn't matter whether you're a fitness professional or a nutritionist or whatever it is that your trade is. If you are struggling or you need answers to your questions about business, like, it's there. We're there.
And to be clear to all the listeners and the viewers, she's the person who essentially runs my business behind the scenes.
That's the part you need to clip and put on Instagram.
she takes the decisions on what direction I'm gonna take, and then I reluctantly accept 3 months later because she was right, but I just wasn't ready to hear it. But that's pretty much how everything has gone since we've been together, and everything that has worked. So again, you're a big part of
my heart rate monitor is going off on my watch, making my heart pitter patter.
Well, I'm glad I can do that for you, honey. Yeah, well, again, I talked about it at the beginning. I won't talk about it again. And I guess we'll keep it here because our little guy is going to come home from school in a few minutes, and we have to be around for him as well. Lisa, Heather, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It was a lot of fun. I don't know, did it go okay for you guys?
Oh, it was awesome. It was great. We really appreciate it. It's just always amazes me that we can be having this conversation with a big ocean in between.
Absolutely.
Lisa, thank you so much for coming on as well. And like I said, as soon as the full program is ready, we'll do another one of those, and we'll go through the whole program, but we'll talk about business and coaching more specifically. I think a lot of people listening to the podcast will appreciate those topics. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, honey.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, please take a few moments to leave a written review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. If you want to watch this episode again, you can find the full video recording on my YouTube channel. You'll also find hundreds of hours of free content, all my podcasts, my thoughts of the day, structured presentations, and more. So don't wait, go subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.